Okay, here's another one. This information is solid. It's fucking solid. You could like, after I'm done with this, you could go ahead and look it up and go to the websites, check them out. You could. This is solid information. Um, there's, I mean, feel free to try to debunk this information. Okay, at the top you have the IMF. Okay, that's number one. That's at the top. IMF stands for International Monetary Fund. These are the bankers. Not fucking. We're not talking about Chase or Wells Fargo. Those banks come to these bankers. These are the top bankers. They're also known as the globalist bankers. Okay? Who are these people? You could look them up. I advise everyone and encourage everyone to go ahead and look them up. The IMF globalist bankers include, but not limited to, the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers, the Lehman Brothers. You could go on and on. They changed their names. They changed their corporations, but it's the same people. It's the same people. It's a handful of these guys. They things that they own. We're talking about the communications. They own all communications. The corporations come down to that. They own the networks. There's only like 6 corporation networks. Okay. And then from there, they work down. By owning these two things and by owning the flow of information, which is data, you get to manipulate everything you want. Anything and everything. Like you put it together, you could just manipulate it. Under this, you have the United Nations. The UN. The UN is funded by the IMF. Where does the IMF get the money from? The IMF gets the money from under the UN because it's a circuit. It's a closed circuit. Means it's closed, guys. All right. I mean, it's closed. It's a circle. All right. They get it from the Federal Reserve. That's where the money comes from. The Federal Reserve prints fake money because it's basically fake. It used to be pegged to gold at one time. Then in the 60s, Nixon removed the gold peg and then pegged it to petroleum. And so the Federal Reserve does not have any way of actually accounting the money that's out there. They can't. When the first person gave out $1 to the next person, and then that next person gave that dollar out to another person, imaginary money was created right there. It's not part of what was here. It's not part of the gold. It's not part of the petroleum. It's digital. So from now it went from gold to petroleum to now it's digital. It's just fucking ones and zeros. There's no value whatsoever behind money, the monetary system. At this point, it's gonna fall apart. This is how if historical documents and the way the reserve works, where the whole world works on the one reserve, it's always falling apart. World War II, World War One, the Civil War, all of those were tied to the monetary system failure, which is what's happening now. And it's going to start getting worse. If you don't understand this, you just got to go look at pictures of what's going on in Detroit. Detroit was the heart of America. So the heart of America is falling apart right now. Because that is the heart of America. That's where America got big from, was the fact that they had Detroit, they had the cars, and that had to do with cars had to do with traveling. Believe it or not, is communications, because you're going from one place to another and you're taking information with you, not just products and services, but also communications. So it always comes back to communications. So going back, you have the IMF Monetary Fund. They fund the UN. All that money comes from the Federal Reserve, and it's all imaginary, all of it. There is no value at all. We can't say that if they were to recall and have, if everyone was to cash out right now, say everyone went to all their banks and be like, I want to take my money out the bank now. Everyone did this at the same time right now. I want my money banked now. The banks cannot give you that money. They do not have enough money to pay everyone, because banks do what they have. They lend out. They lend out money, and then they, on top of that money that's being lent out, they lend out more money that's being lent out on more money. They also have these weird packages where they're called, where they claim that they have, like, okay, so they have 10 houses, right? They claim that they have 10 houses. The houses have not been liquidated or sold or none of that, but that's called that value that they have on those houses. They put it together and they make a package, and then they say that they claim that each house is worth 1 million, and then they end up totaling out 10 million and then lending it out, but they don't have the 10 million. They're not even sure if those houses are worth $1 million apiece. They claimed it, and that's it. And just based on faith alone, those packages went out as $10 million that were lent to these big corporations, because that money is not really spent on small businesses. It really, the majority of that goes on to these big these big operations. It's a real simple system. The way they keep turning everything around and trying to use this against us, because this system is slavery. That's what it is. It's not real. It's based on faith alone. It's a religion. If you want to talk about faith, then technically it's a religion. Okay? You're going to put faith on all this, and then how do they keep circulating all this? With bullshit operations, such as the United Nations is big with this globalization. They got everyone believing that everyone's on a small finite globe, and that makes it easy for them to say, oh, well, from space we seen this and we seen that, and so we're gonna make decisions based on our observation, because that's what science is, right? It's observation. So everyone is putting faith on one. And when we're talking about UN, we mean United Nations, because that's international. We're not, you're talking about someone's in space and shit. The United States in space. The United States is not in space. It's the United Nations. United States has no fucking sovereign power in space at all. The UK does not. Japan does not. None of those nations, India, none of those nations have power or sovereign powers in anywhere outside of their own nation. So when you're talking about they're outside in space, that's the United Nations. I don't give a fuck what name they put on it. They could tell you Mickey Mouse is in space. It's still United Nations. So don't sit there and say that how are they working together? They're not. They are working together. You could go and look it up. It's called the Space Treaty, Space Law, Space Treaty, International Space Treaty. You could look this up. You could go out at the end of this video. I'm gonna go ahead and list all everywhere that you could look all this information up. This is called globalization. They have everyone believing in globalization. This is how to do it. You cannot have globalization without a finite globe. I encourage everyone to try and explain it. Try explaining globalization without a finite globe. Finite means scarcity. There's not an abundance. That's what it is. It's about scarcity. Scarcity is about fear. This is all fear mongering. The communications they had just like last or 2 years ago, they had everyone believing everyone was gonna die of Ebola, and then after that they moved on to something else. Before that there was something else. It just goes on and on and on. They have everyone scared to move around, and that kills communications. It's like they're in control of these basic concepts. Like, it's real simple. I'm gonna go ahead and post this up, and then post up all the information where you can find and look for yourself, man. This is a simple, easy 10-minute rant or whatever you want to call it. But I'm gonna go ahead and put that information down there so you yourselves can look and see what the agenda's about. This is an agenda. They went from the 21st agenda to now it's called Agenda 2030. It's the same part. It's the Sustainable Development Agenda. It's social engineering. It's globalization is part of the social engineering. They have you believing things that are not real. I'll go ahead and post that information so you guys could go ahead and look up this information. How the IMF, the United Nations, and the Federal Reserve work together as a slavery machine. This is a slavery machine right here. I'll go ahead and post it right after this.